Assalamu alaikum. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our third lecture on the lesson determination that we have been talking about in Unit 4. We are going to finish this off today, inshallah. I have discussed the lesson in two previous lectures where I have explained the text of the lesson. And then I told you we will also discuss its summary, and I did that in the previous lecture, in the second lecture. This is basically the third and last lecture that we are going to take on the lesson determination. In this lesson, we are going to do the exercise. We are going to discuss the exercise in the book. So we have already read the text. I hope you have understood it. I hope you know now what is the meaning of hope. What does hope mean? Basically, courage and determination. So, as I mentioned in my first lecture, these three things, this will be the recurrent theme in all the three lessons, in all the three passages, stories or points that we are going to discuss in this unit. We have finished reading the text. I have narrated the summary of the lesson also. Now it's time to discuss its exercise. If you look at your books on page number 127, on page 127, it is titled as study questions, and we have three sections in that. Section 1 is recalling, section 2 interpreting, section 3 extending. Now you need to understand one thing. You might have noticed that comprehension is almost everywhere in every examination. You know, from matriculation till your last degree, 16-year education or even 18-year education. And if you go for competitive exam, for example, CSS, PMS, you will come across this comprehension. Now what does that even mean? Like, is it really easy, or is it really very common that they have introduced this concept and they are bringing it in almost every examination? The reason is comprehension basically give us the knowledge about an aspirant's reading and writing skills at the same time. Normally, what do we do in comprehension? We read a text and there are questions given at the end of the text, and you are supposed to answer them. So if it were just recalling, it would have been much easier. It would have been the easiest thing to do, but that is not. Most of the time we used to make this mistake that if we are given a text and there are questions at the end of that text, what we used to do traditionally, just an example, look at the first question in recalling section, question number 1, which says, what two cities John Roebling thought of connecting through the bridge? This is a very straightforward, simple question, and it can be easily answered directly from the text that we have discussed. But the problem with that type of questions is that this will not, boost your other skills, like to think critically, to come up with your own ideas, and to use your own language, which is the primary function of comprehension. The very primary thing in comprehension is that you are fed with an information, with the knowledge, with a story or anything that is included in that text. And then you are being asked. So the very primary thing is that you are supposed to answer it in your own words. Remember, answer the questions in your own words. Now, this is a very straightforward question. That which two cities were supposed to be connected by this bridge? If you come back to the first page of the lesson, page 123, you will easily find its answer. And this is in the very first line. In 1883, a creative engineer named John Roebling was inspired by an idea to build a spectacular bridge connecting New York with the Long Island. So the question is answered. But what do you think? What is your expectation that how will it be checked by the examiner? Believe me, if this question carry, for example, 5 or 6 marks, you will be awarded with 2 or maximum 3 marks. And the reason is, first, The context is missing. Second, it has not been answered in your own words. That is the purpose of question and answer, that you have understood the lesson, you have read it, now you are supposed to answer it. So if you understood the lesson, then you will be able to answer it in your own words. Basically, most of the time we used to apply the same scientific technique on literature or on arts also, which is wrong. For example, in sciences, in hard sciences, there are definitions of different, for example, body parts. This is the definition of heart or brain or bones, etc. And then they ask what is bone, what is heart, what is, etc. So, your teacher used to come back to the same page and they'll ask, this from here to this point, this is basically the answer of your question. You used to memorize them and jot it down in your paper and you will get the degree or you will pass the paper. This is not something with English. This is not something with any language, not English per se, right? So here you have to understand the lesson first and then use your own word. You have to be creative here. That is why for studying English for 12 years or 13 years or 10 years, right, we are not capable of producing a single sentence which is grammatically correct. That is the reason. So I want to address that issue here also. So you can answer this question. First of all, give the context. Now, what does context means? Context means to give the information which can complete your answer, and for example, the examiner who is checking your paper, if he or she has never taught this lesson, he or she should be in a position to mark you according to your skills, according to the level that you have, exhibited on the page, on the paper, which is only possible if you give them the context. For example, I'm an English teacher. The only requirement for an English teacher to check these papers is that he or she possesses a master's degree, 16 years of education in English, and that person is eligible to check the papers. Now, when you answer these questions and you do not include the context, that person does not necessarily know this lesson, that this question has been taken from this lesson. So in order to cover up that, that problem, to cover that issue, you should come up with context. So kindly include context in your answer, in every answer. So what would be the proper answer of this question? Let me read the question again. What two cities John Roebling thought of connecting through the bridge? Its answer can be one sentence and it would be correct. For example, Long Island and Brooklyn Bridge were the two cities that were supposed to be connected by the bridge. That is the answer. But again, it's not the complete answer. This is without a context. Please elaborate it before giving the exact information. Just say, this question has been taken from the lesson Determination, in which a very revolutionary engineer come up with a very unique and novel idea of building a huge bridge which will connect the two cities of New York and Long Island with each other. That would be your complete answer. And trust me, if you do that, you will be awarded healthy marks. Let's move on to question number second. What did the bridge building engineers throughout the world think of Roebling's plan? Again, please include the context. You will answer the question in a way that after John Roebling, who was an engineer, came up with this idea that he wanted to connect Long Island with Brooklyn through a bridge, he shared this idea with the rest of the engineers, the experts around the world, and all of them rejected the idea and they called it a crazy idea. That would be the answer of your second question. Question number third. How did Roebling finally succeed in convincing that the project could be accomplished? Again, include the context. Tell them the whole story in one or two sentences. You will come up again with the answer that when John Roebling came with the idea that he wanted to connect Brooklyn with Long Island, it was termed as crazy by many experts. So after being rejected, being dejected from all those people, he shared this idea with his own son Washington, who agreed in executing this plan along with him, and that is how he persuaded him and they started working on the project. Question number 4. What happened when the project was underway for only a few months? It's a straightforward question. After a few months, when the project was underway and John Roebling and Washington was working on the project, a tragic accident happened. That accident was so tragic that it killed John Roebling and it also injured Washington. But Washington was badly injured. He was crippled. He was paralyzed. The only organ that he could move in his whole body was his finger. That would be the answer of the question 4. Question number 5. What was the response of the people after the accident on the site? A very common natural response. So, you will answer the question that after this tragic accident happened, the normal response, which is very much there from everybody, that they said, crazy people and their crazy dream. We warned them that this is not going to happen. See, we already warned them. We told them this is very impossible. This is something that has never been done, and they wanted to do this impossible thing. See, they have met their end, and one is dead and the other is injured. That was the common reaction from the masses. Question number 6. Unable to speak or write. What method did Washington use to communicate with his wife? So you will answer this question in the manner that when he was badly injured, when Washington was badly injured and crippled badly, he could not even move or talk or eat or he could not do the normal function of a human body. He actually came up with a new idea, and that idea was that he developed a code of communication by tapping his one finger. He could only move one finger in his whole body, so he used to tap his finger on his wife's arm, and through that tapping he developed a code and he used to deliver his messages to his wives. That is the answer to question number 6. Question number 7, the last question in recalling section. How did Washington communicate with his engineers for 13 long years? This is very much connected to the previous question. You will just extend that answer. The possible answer to this question is that for 13 long years, Washington used to tap his finger on his wife's arm, and he used to deliver messages to the engineers through his wife. Engineers could not exactly understood his messages, so what he used to do, he used to tap his finger on his wife's arm, and then the wife used to translate that Washington wants to say this and that, right? So that is the first section, recalling section, which will be included in your examination, right? So this is important for your examination section. Kindly check it. I will also discuss interpreting section and extending sections also quickly, because since they are not included in your examination, but they are extremely important. I believe, and for me, the most important part of exercise is interpreting and extending. You have to interpret the story now. You have read the story, you understood the story. This is the time now that you will interpret. Now the writer will not ask you direct questions. See, let me show you. In question number 8, just compare this question with the recalling sections, right? Why did John Roebling ignore when other engineers said that it was an impossible idea, that it could not be done? Why did he ignore the warning that has been given by other engineers? See, there is no direct answer to this question in the whole lesson. There is no direct answer. I cannot tell you, gentlemen, from this line to that line, this is the answer of the question. No, this is not going to happen. You have to answer it by yourself. This can be a very subjective approach. Your answer can be somehow a little bit different from mine. The central idea will be the same, but the wording, of course, will be different. So, you can answer this question that John Roebling ignored the suggestions or the warnings of other experts because he believed in his cause. This is extremely important. When you believe on something, for example, if you come up, you will see many people, around you. They will have dreams, they will have different visions, and they would like to read somewhere. But the problem is they don't believe on themselves. The very first thing, is to know yourself, know thyself. This was the motto of my college, where I used to study. So knowing yourself is extremely important. So if you know yourself, it means you know your capabilities, you trust yourself, you believe in yourself. The first thing is that you need to believe in yourself, then you can encourage others. So the key to this project was that John Roebling believed in himself, he believed in his vision, he believed in his mission, and that is why he succeeded, right? And he ignored the rest of the warnings and suggestions from other people. Question number 9. Why did Washington not abandon the idea of building the bridge after the accident which left him totally paralyzed? Alright, now question number 9. Again, see, this question cannot be directly answered from the text. So, after the accident, Washington was badly injured, he was paralyzed. And why did he still want to continue continue building the bridge? Why did he do that? Why did not he stop immediately? Because an accident happened, his father died, he should have stopped. He did not. Again, because he believed in the cause of his father. This is important. I mentioned in the previous question also that it is extremely important that you believe in yourself, or whatever you do, you need to believe on that. So Washington believed on that cause. He said, this thing is, I believe this is possible. That is why after facing such a tragic end, such a tragic issue, he could not even stop himself. He wanted to continue. And that is why at the end of a very long journey, 13 years, he finally completed the bridge. Question number 10. In interpreting section, which is the last question. The Brooklyn Bridge is called a tribute, a monument by the author. Why? Why did the author call it a monument? It's a spectacular. He called it spectacular or monument or a tribute. Why? Again, this question cannot be directly answered from the text. Because this is not only a bridge. It has emotions. This bridge carry a lot of history within itself. It is a source of inspiration for people who say, I can't do it. This is an inspiration for them. That is why, and also, this is the example of commitment. One person died, he lost his life. The other lost his health, everything. He could not even walk or talk. He was completely paralyzed. But still, they continued the quest. That is why it can be termed as a monument or as a tribute. The last section which carries 2 questions, extending. In exercise, question number 11. Now we have moved from interpreting into extending, which is extremely beyond the both of these parts. It has nothing to do directly with the story. See, question number 11. Can you think of an example from any sphere of life in which someone achieved an impossible feat through sheer courage and indomitable spirit against the odds? Against all odds, obstacle and opposition. The writer is not asking any information from the background knowledge. He is not asking you to, give him any information which we have already discussed in the story. Now he has moved on. It is extending another step forward. The question is, do you know? Can you give us an example from your own practical life or wherever you have seen such an example of courage, determination and hope? So if you know, you can share that story. You will have different people around you. For example, you can always, narrate the story of Stephen Hawking. He is an inspiration. He is an example, right, of hope, courage and determination. You can give many more examples from your daily routine life. You can give the example of Muniba Mazari. She is one of the inspirational speaker. She also faced a lot of issues and problems in her life, and she still survives, and she's one of the most celebrated motivational speakers now these days on social media, on print, electronic media. There are so many other examples. You can give an example from your own common daily life that you have heard or seen somewhere. Question number 12, the last question of the whole exercise. Look at the question. It is on page 127, the last lines. Crazy men and their crazy dreams. It is foolish to chase wild visions. Inverted commas, it means this has been quoted from the text, and this is the exact word of the people, right? It is really foolish to chase wild visions. The writer is asking you, is it really foolish that you can chase, you want to do something new, different, unique? Is it foolishness? Isn't the world that we now have is because of crazy men and their impossible crazy dreams and visions which they realized? And he's also asking a rhetorical question, that isn't so, and isn't it because of the steadfastness, the determination and hope of the same people, of these crazy people, that we are having, for example, aeroplane, we are having mobile phones, we have very unique different things that were unimaginable before our 21st century or maybe 20th century. Isn't it because of them? Of course it is. And look at the last question, the last section of this question. Do some research and find examples of deeds or feat which were considered impossible or crazy or foolish, but which were finally accomplished. And again, it is quite similar to the previous question also, this last part of the question. You can give the examples where you have seen such an example that initially that thing seems impossible, and then the person has achieved that goal or completed that task. So you can give the example from there. That is the end of the exercise. There are a few more things, but of course that is, we are not going to cover them in this lecture. And there is another section for language study, which means that it is more about language and grammar. Inshallah, we will discuss that in some other videos purely based on grammar. We will inshallah continue this sessions, and in that we will purely talk about grammar only. But here we are done with this lesson. Inshallah, in the next lesson I will talk about the next story, which is the man who planted trees. So till then, I'll see you soon inshallah. Thank you very much.